Ambassador Sujan Chinoy, all our foreign speakers who are here from various countries, very eminent veterans who are sitting here as part of the strategic community, and all members of the strategic community who are sitting here. A very good morning to you all, and to our friends from West Asia, Ahlan wa Sahlan. What I would like to do is to give an overview of how we look at West Asia, what has happened in West Asia, what it brings out as people who are connected to West Asia. And I deliberately say connected because India and West Asia have had a relationship which spans so many years that it is difficult to count them. And these links have been in many fields. And therefore, we have great stake in how West Asia develops, how it prospers, and how India and West Asia take their relationship and trade forward. Now, so far as we are concerned, West Asia is in a very important geopolitical location. It is connected to continents. It has got vast natural resources, and it is a area which has had prominence for many, many, many years. And therefore, India, for its trade, has depended a lot on West Asia. Our links are very old. Our spice routes and trade routes pass through West Asia. West Asia was the place from where Abrahamic religions started. They also came to India. And if we look at oil, almost 45% of crude and 48% of proven oil reserves rest in West Asia. However, the area has been in turmoil for a very long time. Some areas like Yemen for a very, very long time. And some areas which have been peaceful have seen in last 40, 50 years such turbulence that that peacefulness has gone. I mean, if we look at the area of Lebanon, a peaceful, prosperous country, what is it today? You all know. When the movement started on what was called the Arab Spring or the Arab Awakening, there was a state of flux and uncertainty. There were various prognoses as to what will happen, how turmoil could happen or how stability could happen, how people could move more towards democracy and which would unleash its own dynamics. However, I think if we have seen in the last decade, nothing much has happened. It came up, the teapot boiled over, and after that settled down. And what I think in your subsequent sessions, what needs to be analyzed is this phenomena still simmering? What is going to be the effect in the future? And where are we at the moment? Are we in control of things, or things can be taken to a different level by some instigators and disruptors? And we need to watch that. Now, we looked at the development in terms of competing ideologies also. The area has many competing ideologies, and therefore you do find a certain amount of conflict that takes place for various reasons. And let me give an example. For the reason that I went to Sana'a, let me take Yemen. Yemen has been at war for many centuries. It was always an area where I think people loved fighting. Got divided in north and south, got amalgamated, peace prevailed, things became better, and suddenly we find total disruption again. The question here is, could it have been handled better? Could this turmoil have been handled in a manner in which it would have remained peaceful as it was going towards that particular way? It was on direction of peace. Could we have maintained peace? Could we have done things better? Could we have handled the political situation better and not allowed a humanitarian crisis to take place? So, similarly, there are many regions in West Asia where this type of trend is visible. When we look at the economic situation, Ambassador Chinoy brought it out very clearly. There has been a decline after the global economic crisis in 2008 in terms of the overall economic situation. It affected the whole world, it affected West Asia. And the energy prices suffered. They have been doing a seesaw. There's the terms of trade deterioration because of that with many countries all around us. And the tightening of balance of payment reserves is also an issue that needs to be looked at. The armed conflicts continue in many areas. I've talked of Yemen, and like I said, I think out there it is in their DNA to keep fighting. So, similarly, we find that if we look at Iraq, Iraq has transitioned since 2014 to three different phases. You had an emergency response in 2014. You had stabilization process that started in 2016. And you have a thing of reconstruction and regular development since 2018. You also had a situation where footprint of Daesh has increased and abated. You still find Daesh as a issue that afflicts the region. How is it going to move out in future? Why did it firstly take such strong roots in the beginning itself in 2014? Why did it go that way? And has it been rooted out completely? These are the questions that we need to look at seriously if we want to look at West Asia and how it will be in the future and the type of peace and development that we look for in West Asia. When you take the GCC, there are fault lines which unfortunately do not show many signs of rapprochement. There are problems. And I think this needs to be taken note of so that any future solutions that you look at has to take this into account. If these fault lines are not identified, if these fault lines are not catered for, then no solution will last. You take any country and you will find this as an issue. The recent military offensive by Turkey in northeast Syria has also aggravated political and humanitarian crisis in one of the most volatile regions of the world. Too many people involved out there. And that has been a bane of West Asia, where there have been many outside players for their own interests who have got involved and have created situations which have lasted for a very long time. The solution has to be found by people within West Asia, nobody from outside. I don't think, and this is quite visible from the type of lukewarm response that the American plan for settling the Palestine problem came out. It was not a solution that came from within the region, and therefore the response was also lukewarm. Can there be a solution from within the region? Can we identify those fault lines and see what is it that will bridge them? That's why I talked of the fault lines, because without that, I don't think things will happen. Uh, if we look at Syria, since I mentioned it, economy seems to be improving. It seems to be improving. And especially when we look at how the conflict has gone, where it is eased, where it is more, these also have their own origins in various groups that are fighting. Who are the people who are supporting these groups is known. What are their interests is probably what is allowing this conflict to linger on. And in this, I think Daesh has only taken advantage. Today, the remnants of Daesh continue, and the ideology of Daesh continues. It seems that they would be looking at how they can expend what they have already lost, if not in Iraq and parts of Syria, somewhere else. What could be those regions? I think it'll do us a lot of good if, as part of our sessions, we also deliberate on this. The tension between Saudi Arabia, Iran, US, Iran has its own dynamics. What needs to be done has to be thought out in terms of what will be Iran's responses and what will be the counters to that response by rest of the countries. My feeling is that the future with these type of tensions does not look very happy. And we need to seriously work out as to what is it that will bring down the temperatures in this particular rivalry that carries on for dominance of hearts and minds of larger part of West Asia. The assessment, continuous monitoring, and continuous discussion amongst various West Asian countries is a must if we want to bring development and peace to cement over these issues. Otherwise, things will not happen. We also see that the involvement of private sector, which was coming from outside West Asia, has dwindled during this period. Whether it is because of the instability, whether it is because of the type of fissures that have occurred, whether it is because of way some of the countries have made their own policies, all are part of this. And therefore, if we want the economy to do well, people will have to work out measures to ensure that the private equity is able to come fearlessly into this so that they can develop and also profit by the development. When we look at Jordan, Jordan has also made moderate or modest growth, kind courtesy tourism and its mining sector picking up. How far it will go is difficult to predict at the moment, but I think they have a very sagacious leader who's able to, at the moment, steer a path for Jordan which takes it more towards prosperity. One thing which is very visible during this last decade, in the educational sector, the female population has done much better than what it had done earlier. And I think that's a very, very positive sign where West Asia is concerned. This will contribute towards growth and future prosperity. And I think as it picks up, as there is more involvement of the female population in these countries, we will find a certain amount of change for positivity and for better development. Where India is concerned, besides the civilizational links, this area is our largest trading bloc. Be it whether you take it gas, you take the crude, you take the number of Indians who work out there, the type of remittance they send. I mean, when we take all the Indians abroad, 50% of the remittance that they send to India are from West Asia. A very large population in West Asia. And some of the countries, the uh, Indian population is more than the indigenous population. And they are into all kinds of fields, doing all kinds of work. Now, this kind of relationship obviously means that India is always interested in ensuring that there is peace and development in West Asia. We have stakes, whether it is trade, whether it is our people working out there for the prosperity of those countries, but we have stakes in ensuring that peace prevails in this area and things are better. If you take the type of healthcare staff that goes from India, I think very large healthcare staff goes from India, and they are very happy working out there. They find the environment good, except when things go wrong. And Sujan mentioned Yemen. My experience was that Indians living in these countries, till the bullet doesn't come next to their ear, they don't go. They want to carry on staying there. And it is at the last minute that one has to work out how to take them out. This is a problem that we have to work out our own responses for. Now, we have, besides the remittances, we have almost a trade of $175 billion, very large. And we are involved in everything, whether it is the masala chai that goes, or it is the other spices that go, everything. There is so much of give and take between West Asia and India. It is. You go out there and you find that it's like coming home. And this type of relationship means that India will always have West Asia at the center of its foreign policy. Yes, our foreign policy has become slightly more different, and I won't say the total properties have changed, but the difference is in terms of how we look at our relationship. And we have made our relationships based on each country, and it's not a zero-sum game. We have interest in Iran, so we have good relations with Iran. We have interest in Saudi Arabia, and that's why we have good relations with Saudi Arabia. So this is something which will continue, because we have found that this gives better results where our engagement with those countries are concerned. And I'm quite sure the West Asian countries have also found that this suits them, because it allows for better trade and commerce between India and their country. There are a large number of sovereign funds in these countries who have invested in India. And I think more want to invest in India because of the type of growth projections that we see. And we feel that this also brings our bonding that much more closer. We have created cooperative arrangements between West Asian countries and us in strategic areas like counter-terrorism, defense intelligence sharing, anti-piracy, money laundering, small arms smuggling, and combating financing of terrorist activities. These, with each country separately, we have worked this out. And I think this is what is in India's interest, to ensure that we have such arrangements with all the possible countries in West Asia, which impact the various issues which plague India. What is there in terms of defense diplomacy that Sujan talked of? We look at these countries not only as our trading partners, as our friends in economy and commerce, as our friends in various fora in the world. We also look at how we can cooperate and help each other in terms of crisis. And therefore, this is where defense diplomacy comes in. We are trying to enlarge our relationship, whether it is the maritime field or it is issues which have become more contemporary today, and that is counterterrorism. Because that's a worldwide phenomena, nothing peculiar to a particular country. Any country can get affected. And therefore, we find that there is more training, there is more number of personnel going to each country. We are offering more training slots to the countries in West Asia, and we feel that this is going to help in ensuring that India, which is a non-partisan attitude, would be a more trusted friend than some of the other people who tend to then make inroads and subsequently they have their own interests. What would be the lessons and challenges that come out from this survey that you do for 10 years of West Asia? One thing that comes out is that fissures are there, they get papered over, but they do not go away. What is it that needs to be done? And that is a question for the future. That's a challenge for the future. Second thing is the internal conflicts, because of the type of demography that exists, has a great significance in West Asia. I need not elaborate on it. We all know the type of demography that exists in various countries, and that has interplay in the relationships that happen in various countries, and how things get taken to a different direction altogether. One of the challenges that is available in West Asia is how to, as a complete bloc, how do you take advantage of the resources, financial, economic, natural, all combined, so that it benefits. Is it possible? Is it not possible? That's something which the experts have to look at, people who make policies have to look at. My feeling is that there is a need for West Asia to look at it more deeply so that they can ensure that there is no outside involvement which leads to deterioration and longer frame time. Other lesson that comes out is that you have today, everybody used to depend on OPEC for oil. That seems to be going out. The challenges to OPEC supremacy that is taking place. How do you get over it? How do you ensure that the type of reserves and oil that you have is still giving you the type of advantage that used to give you 10 years back? Is it going to change? Are alternate means of energy going to come in which will put a certain amount of friction or brakes on this resource? That's something which needs to be looked at. Is West Asia going to go for a different methodology altogether? And let me give you a scenario. India is part of Solar Alliance. Suppose you were to put solar farms in Oman and transport that energy to India. Oman will have sun going down at a later period of time, almost 1.5 hours after sun goes down in India. Does it help? Does it give you more income? Does it help in economics? Does it help in relationship? And there can be many methods. Today the world is looking at transportation of energy as an area which is progressing very fast. You can produce energy in Chennai and transport it to Delhi without loss of power. You don't require transmission lines. This is happening. So there are more fields that will open up, and that is what we need to look at it in the future. And lastly, what would be my prognosis? It's a personal this thing. My prognosis would be West Asia has to work out something that will ensure that the conflicts go down. and the conflict regions are red spots are many. Each spot needs to be examined, and each spot has a solution. I gave you example of Yemen. I'm quite sure if the powers to be had both the presidents of that time, Mr. Haji and late Saleh, talking to each other across the table, or probably being settled, one in New Zealand and one in Alaska, I'm sure Yemen would be very quiet these days. Many things can happen. But this area is an area which has great potential for the future, and I'm quite sure in your deliberations, this is what will emerge at the end of it. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.